Lena Moetti had learned to live small. Not by choice, by necessity, by the slow erosion of dreams into dust, by the relentless grind of rent and bills and the kind of exhaustion that settles into your bones like winter cold. She had once believed that life would open up for her someday, that the tight grip of survival would loosen, that she would breathe freely again. But someday never came. It stayed on the horizon, always visible, never close. She worked at a cafe called the Ember Asterisk, tucked into a quiet corner of the city where the noise of ambition didn't reach. The kind of place where people came to disappear for an hour, to sip cheap espresso and pretend they were somewhere else. Lena understood that impulse. She lived it every day. Her shifts were long. Her feet ached. Her hands smelled of burnt coffee and dish soap. She smiled at strangers, took their orders, and never asked questions. She had learned that survival meant invisibility. The less you were noticed, the safer you were. But even invisibility had its limits. It started with a message. Not unusual in itself. Her phone buzzed constantly with spam, with missed calls from debt collectors, with reminders of things she couldn't afford to forget. But this one was different. It came from an unknown number. No name. No profile picture. Just words that felt too familiar. Too knowing. Asterisk, you shouldn't be waking there. Asterisk. She stayed at the screen, her heartbeat slowing to a dull thud. She didn't know who it was. She didn't want to. Lena had spent years teaching herself to ignore the strange, the unsettling, the vaguely threatening. She deleted the message and went back to wiping down tables. But the messages didn't stop. They came in slow, steady intervals. Never demanding. Never aggressive. Just present. Asterisk, you deserve better than this. Asterisk. Asterisk, I've been watching you. Asterisk. Asterisk, you don't have to be afraid. Asterisk. That last one made her hands tremble. She blocked the number. She told herself it was over, that whoever it was would move on, find someone else to haunt with the hollow assurances. Before we go on, tell us, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments below. Lena didn't believe in fate. She didn't believe in salvation. She believed in paychecks and bus schedules and the small, fragile routine that kept her upright. But the universe, it seemed, had other plans. It was a Tuesday afternoon when he walked in. The cafe was nearly empty. A few students hunched over laptops. An old man reading a newspaper. The hum of the espresso machine. The low murmur of rain against the windows. Lena was behind the counter, counting tips, when the door opened. She didn't look up at first. She had trained herself not to. Eye contact invited conversation, and conversation invited complication. But something in the air shifted. The cafe grew quieter. The students stopped typing. The old man lowered his newspaper. Lena looked up. He was tall. Dark suit. Dark eyes. The kind of presence that didn't announce itself. It simply was. He moved through the space like he owned it, like the world rearranged itself to accommodate him. And maybe it did, because one by one, every person in that cafe stood up. Not rushed. Not panicked. Just automatic. Like a reflex. Like breathing. Lena froze. She had lived in this city long enough to recognize power when it walked through a door. She had seen it before. The way people moved aside. The way voices dropped. The way fear dressed itself up as respect. But this was different. This wasn't just power. This was something older. Something heavier. He walked to the counter. His gaze found hers and held it. And Lena knew. She knew before he spoke. Before he smiled that small, knowing smile. Before he said the words that would unravel everything she thought she understood about her life. You blocked my number. Her breath caught. Her mind scrambled for logic, for explanation, for any thread of reason that could make sense of this moment. But there was none. Only the cold certainty that her small, invisible life had just collided with something far bigger than her. He leaned against the counter, casual, unhurried. I don't blame you. I would have done the same. Lena's voice came out smaller than she intended. Who are you? He tilted his head slightly, as if the question amused him. My name is Dante Caruso. And you, Lena Moetti, are in more danger than you realize. The wild narrowed to the space between them. The rain outside, the silence inside, the weight of his words settling over her like a shroud. She wanted to run. She wanted to scream. She wanted to tell him he was wrong, that he had the wrong person, that she was no one, nothing, invisible. But he knew her name, and that changed everything. Dante didn't move. He simply watched her, his expression unreadable, his presence overwhelming. I'm not here to hurt you, he said quietly. I'm here to make sure no one else does. Lena's hands gripped the edge of the counter. I don't understand. You will. He straightened, his gaze never leaving hers. But not here. Not now. He turned to leave, and the cafe exhaled as one. The students sat back down. The old man returned to his newspaper. The world resumed its ordinary rhythm, as if nothing had happened. But Lena knew better, because as Dante reached the door, he paused. He looked back at her, and in that moment, she saw something she didn't expect. Not cruelty, not threat, concern. Lock your doors tonight, he said, and don't ignore my calls. Then he was gone, and Lena was left standing in the wreckage of her ordinary life, knowing it would never be ordinary again. Lena didn't go home that night. She couldn't. The thought of returning to her small apartment, the peeling wallpaper, the creaking floorboards, the single lock that barely held, felt like walking into a trap. So she stayed. She cleaned the cafe long after closing, scrubbing tables that were already clean, reorganizing shelves that didn't need it. Anything to keep her hands busy, anything to keep her mind from spiraling. But it spiraled anyway. Dante Caruso. The name felt heavy in her mouth, like something she shouldn't say aloud. She had heard it before, whispers in the neighborhood, rumors that floated through the city like smoke. The Caruso family, untouchable, feared, the kind of name that made people lower their voices and look over their shoulders. And now that name was attached to her. She didn't understand why. She didn't understand how. She was no one. She had no enemies. She owed no debts to dangerous men. Her life was a series of small, forgettable moments strung together by necessity. There was nothing in it worth noticing. And yet, you're in more danger than you realize. The words echoed in her mind, relentless and unanswerable. She wanted to dismiss them. She wanted to believe he was wrong, that this was all some kind of mistake, that tomorrow she would wake up and her life would return to its predictable monotony. But she had seen the way the cafe had reacted to him, the way people had stood without thinking, the way the air itself had bent around his presence. Men like that didn't make mistakes. Her phone buzzed. Lena's heart lurched. She stayed at the screen, half expecting another unknown number, another cryptic message. But it was her manager, a text asking her to lock up and go home. She typed a quick reply and pocketed the phone. Then she grabbed her coat, turned off the lights, and stepped into the rain-soaked street. The city was quiet, too quiet, the kind of silence that felt like waiting. Lena pulled her coat tighter and started walking. Her apartment was only a few blocks away. She could make it. She had walked this route 100 times before. But tonight, every shadow felt like a threat. She kept her head down, her pace quick. The rain muffled the sound of her footsteps. The street lights flickered. And then, a car pulled up beside her. Black, sleek, the kind of car that didn't belong in this part of the city. The window rolled down, and a man leaned out. Not Dante. Someone else. Younger. Sharp-suited. Cold-eyed. Get in. Lena didn't stop walking. I'm fine. It wasn't a request. She quickened her pace. Her mind raced. She could run. She could scream. She could. Another car appeared ahead of her, blocking the sidewalk, and another behind. 3 cars. 3 men. All of them watching her with the same detached efficiency. Lena's breath came in short, shallow gasps. She looked around, searching for an escape, for anyone who might help. But the street was empty. The city had abandoned her. The first man stepped out of the car. "Mr. Caruso wants to see you." "I don't care what he wants," Lena said, her voice shaking. "I don't know him. I don't know any of you." The man's expression didn't change. "That's not how this works." He moved toward her, and Lena stepped back. Her heel caught on the curb. She stumbled, caught herself, and in that moment of imbalance, he was there. His hand closed around her arm, firm, unyielding. "Let go of me," she said, her voice rising. "Get in the car, Miss Moetti." She tried to pull away, but his grip tightened. Panic flared in her chest. She opened her mouth to scream, and then the world shifted. Another car, this one pulling up fast, headlights cutting through the rain. The door opened before it even stopped, and Dante Caruso stepped out. The man holding Lena released her immediately. He stepped back, his expression carefully neutral. The other men did the same, their postures shifting from aggressive to deferential in an instant. Dante didn't look at them. He looked at Lena. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, too shaken to speak. He turned to the men, his voice low and cold. "I told you to watch her, not touch her." "We were following orders," the first man said carefully. "Whose orders?" Silence. Dante took a step forward, and the air grew colder. "Whose orders?" The man hesitated, then said, "Your father's." Lena's mind reeled. Asterisk father to asterisk she didn't understand. She didn't want to. Dante's jaw tightened. He said nothing for a long moment, and in that silence, Lena felt the weight of something far larger than her. Something she had stumbled into without meaning to. Finally, Dante turned back to her. "Get in the car, Lena." "No." His eyes met hers. "I'm not asking." "I don't care." Her voice was steadier now, anger cutting through the fear. "I don't know what this is. I don't know why you think I'm involved in whatever this is. But I'm not. I'm nobody. I just want to go home." Dante studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "All right." He gestured to one of his men. "Take her home. Stay outside her building. No one goes in. No one comes out." The man nodded and moved toward Lena. She flinched, and Dante held up a hand. "He won't touch you. He'll just make sure you're safe." "Safe from what?" Lena demanded. Dante didn't answer. He just looked at her with that same unreadable expression, and then he got back in his car and drove away. Lena stood in the rain, trembling, as the man gestured toward the second car. She didn't want to get in. She didn't want any of this, but she didn't have a choice. So she climbed into the back seat, and the door closed behind her. And as the car pulled away, she realized that her small, invisible life was gone. She just didn't know what would take its place. Lena didn't sleep that night. She sat on her bed, still in her coat, staring at the wall. Outside her window, the black car sat like a shadow. She could see the man inside, silhouetted by the streetlight, unmoving. A sentinel, a guard, a prison. She told herself she could leave. She could walk out the door, down the stairs, past the car, and disappear into the city. But even as the thought formed, she knew it was a lie. Men like Dante Caruso didn't make suggestions. They made declarations, and the world obeyed. So she stayed. The hours crawled by. The rain stopped. The city grew quiet. And Lena sat in the dark, her mind cycling the same impossible questions. Asterisk, why me? Asterisk. Asterisk, what danger? Asterisk. Asterisk, what does his father want? Asterisk. She had no answers, only the cold certainty that her life had been pulled out from under her, and she was falling. When dawn finally broke, she forced herself to move. She showered. She dressed. She made coffee with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. And then she went to the window and looked out at the car. It was still there. So was he. Lena closed her eyes and exhaled slowly. Then she grabbed her phone and called her manager at * the Ember Star. I can't come in today. Are you sick? Something like that. A pause. Lena, is everything okay? No, nothing was okay. But she couldn't say that. So she lied. I just need a day. I'll be back tomorrow. She ended the call before he could ask more questions. Then she sat on the couch and waited. She didn't know what she was waiting for, only that something was coming. Something she couldn't stop. It came at noon. A knock at the door. Soft. Deliberate. Lena didn't move. Another knock. Miss Moetti. A voice she didn't recognize. Male. Come. Mr. Caruso would like to speak with you. Her stomach twisted. I don't want to speak with him. He thought you might say that. A pause. He asked me to tell you that this conversation can happen here, in your home, or somewhere more private. The choice is yours. Lena stood slowly. She moved to the door, her hand hovering over the lock. And if I refuse? Then he'll wait. She closed her eyes. He'll wait. As if time meant nothing to him. As if her resistance was just a delay, not a refusal. She unlocked the door. The man on the other side was not the one from last night. This one was older, gray-haired, dressed in a tailored suit. He looked more like a lawyer than a thug. He offered her a polite smile. My name is Marco. I work for Mr. Caruso. He's waiting downstairs. Of course he is, Lena muttered. Marco's smile didn't falter. He's asked me to assure you that this meeting is for your benefit, not his. That's not reassuring. I understand. He stepped aside, gesturing toward the stairs. But he's not a patient man, Miss Moetti. And the longer you make him wait, the more dangerous this situation becomes. Lena's chest tightened. She wanted to refuse. She wanted to slam the door and lock herself inside and pretend none of this was happening. But she couldn't, because somewhere, buried beneath the fear, was a flicker of something else. Curiosity. What does he want from me? She grabbed her jacket and followed Marco downstairs. Dante was waiting in the lobby. Not in the car. Not surrounded by men. Just standing there, hands in his pockets, looking like he belonged in her rundown building the same way he belonged everywhere else, effortlessly, inevitably. He looked at her as she descended the stairs, and something in his expression softened. Thank you for coming down. Lena stopped a few feet away. I didn't have a choice. You always have a choice. His voice was quiet, almost gentle. I just make some of them easier than others. She crossed her arms. What do you want? Dante glanced at Marco, who nodded and stepped outside. Then he turned back to Lena. I want to explain. And I want you to listen. That's all. And if I don't want to listen, then I'll leave. He met her gaze, but the danger won't. Lena's breath hitched. What danger? I don't understand any of this. I don't know you. I don't know your family. I'm nobody. You're not nobody. His voice was firm. And that's the problem. She stared at him, confusion and frustration warring in her chest. What does that even mean? Dante hesitated. For the first time, she saw something other than certainty in his eyes. Something closer to regret. You're connected to someone my family has been looking for. Someone who owes us a debt. Lena's heart sank. Who? He didn't answer immediately, and in that silence, she knew. Your father. The world tilted. Lena shook her head, taking a step back. No, my father's dead. He's been dead for 10 years. I know. Dante's voice was soft. But his debts aren't. The words hit her like a punch. She felt the air leave her lungs, felt the ground shift beneath her feet. That's not fair. That's not. I didn't do anything. I didn't even know him. He left when I was 16. I haven't seen him since. I know. Dante took a step closer, and I've told my father that. But he doesn't care. To him, Family is family. And debts are debts. Lena's hands were shaking again. So what? You're here to collect? To punish me for something I didn't do? No. His voice was firm. I'm here to protect you. She laughed bitterly. By trapping me? By putting men outside my door? By keeping you alive? He closed the distance between them, his gaze intense. My father's not the only one looking for you, Lena. The people your father wronged, they are looking too. And they don't care about fairness. They don't care about innocence. They just care about revenge. Lena's breath came in shallow gasps. This can't be happening. It is. Dante's voice softened. And I'm sorry, but I can't change it. I can only keep you safe. She looked up at him, tears burning in her eyes. How? He didn't hesitate. By taking you somewhere they can't reach you. And there it was. The cage disguised as safety. The choice that wasn't a choice. Lena wanted to refuse. She wanted to fight. But she was so tired. So she nodded. And Dante Caruso's world closed around her like a door locking from the outside. They drove for an hour. Lena sat in the back of Dante's car, staring out the window as the city fell away behind them. The buildings grew sparser. The streets grew quieter. The world outside became softer, greener, as if the chaos of her life couldn't follow her here. But she knew better. Dante sat beside her, silent. He didn't try to fill the space with empty reassurances. He didn't tell her everything would be okay. And somehow, that honesty was worse than any lie, because it meant he didn't know either. The car turned off the main road and onto a private drive. Trees lined the path, their branches forming a canopy overhead. The sunlight filtered through in fragmented beams, casting the world in shades of gold and shadow. And then the house appeared. It wasn't a house. It was an estate. Tall, elegant. Stone walls and iron gates and windows that reflected the sky. The kind of place that belonged in another century, where power was inherited and unchallenged. Lena had seen places like this in movies, in books, in dreams, but never in her life. The car stopped at the entrance. Dante stepped out first, then offered her his hand. She didn't take it. She climbed out on her own, her gaze fixed on the house. This is where you live. This is where you'll be safe. She turned to him. You mean this is where I'll be hidden? His jaw tightened. Call it what you want. It's better than the alternative. Lena didn't argue. She just followed him inside. The interior was as imposing as the exterior. High ceilings, marble floors, art on the walls that probably cost more than she'd earn in a lifetime. It was beautiful. Cold. Empty. A woman appeared, older, gray-haired, with kind eyes and a crisp uniform. She smiled at Lena. Welcome, Miss Moetti. My name is Rosa. I'll show you to your room. Lena glanced at Dante, who nodded. So she followed Rosa up a grand staircase, down a long hallway, to a door at the end. Rosa opened it, and Lena stepped inside. The room was bigger than her entire apartment. A four-poster bed, a sitting area, windows that overlooked the grounds. It was the kind of room that should have felt like luxury, but all Lena felt was trapped. Rosa set a hand on her shoulder. I know this is overwhelming, but you're safe here. Mr. Caruso will make sure of it. Lena nodded, not trusting her voice. Rosa left, closing the door softly behind her, and Lena stood in the center of that beautiful, empty room and felt her life crumbling around her. The first few days passed in a blur. Lena barely left her room. She ate the meals Rosa brought her. She stared out the windows at the ground she couldn't walk. She tried to read, to sleep, to think. But her mind wouldn't settle. She kept circling back to the same thought. Asterisk, how did I end up here? Asterisk. She hadn't asked for this. She hadn't wanted this. She had spent her entire life trying to stay small, to stay invisible, to avoid the kind of attention that could destroy you. And yet here she was, in the home of a man whose name made people stand without thinking. whose world was built on fear and control, whose protection felt like captivity. Dante visited her once a day. He didn't stay long. He would knock, wait for her to answer, then step inside and ask how she was. She never knew what to say, so she said nothing, and he would nod, as if her silence was answer enough, and leave. But on the 5th day, he stayed. He knocked, entered, and instead of leaving, he sat in the chair by the window. Lena looked at him warily. "What do you want?" "To talk." "We have nothing to talk about." "We have everything to talk about." He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "You can't stay in this room forever, Lena. Watch me." His mouth twitched, almost a smile. "You're angry. I understand that." "Do you?" She stood, her hands clenched at her sides. "Do you understand what it's like to have your life ripped away? To be told you're in danger for something you didn't do? To be locked in a beautiful room and told it's for your own good?" He didn't flinch. "Yes." The word hung in the air. Lena stared at him. "What?" Dante looked out the window. "I was 12 when my father told me I'd never leave this world, that I was born into it, and I'd die in it, that every choice I thought I had was already made for me." He paused. "So yes, I understand." Lena sank back onto the bed. She didn't know what to say. Dante turned back to her. "I'm not asking you to forgive me, or to trust me. I'm just asking you to survive. And to do that, you need to understand the rules." "What rules?" "Stay on the grounds. Don't leave without me. Don't contact anyone from your old life." His voice was firm. "And don't ask questions you don't want the answers to." Lena's throat tightened. "And if I break the rules?" "Then people die." He stood. "And I can't let that happen." He left before she could respond, and Lena sat in the silence, the weight of his words pressing down on her like stone. If this story has already found a place in your heart, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and check the description box below for more stories that stay long after they end. The days turned into weeks. Slowly, Lena began to move through the house. She explored the library, the garden, the kitchen, where Rosa taught her how to make bread. She found routines, small comforts, moments that felt almost normal. But always, there was the awareness, the men at the gates, the cameras in the halls, the invisible bars that kept her in. And always, there was Dante. He was careful with her. He never touched her, never raised his voice. He spoke to her like she was fragile, like she might shatter if he pressed too hard. But Lena wasn't fragile. She was angry, and she was tired of pretending she wasn't. One evening, she found him in his study. He was at his desk, papers spread before him, his expression distant. "I want to leave," she said. He looked up. "No, I'm not asking for permission." He set down his pen. "Then you're not understanding the situation." "I understand perfectly." She stepped closer. "I'm a prisoner, and you're my jailer." Something flickered in his eyes. "Is that what you think?" "What else am I supposed to think?" He stood, moving around the desk until he was inches from her. "You think I want you here? You think I enjoy keeping you locked away?" "I don't know what you want," Lena said, her voice rising. "You won't tell me anything. You won't let me live. You just keep me here like I'm some kind of... You're not a prisoner." His voice was low, intense. "You're alive, and as long as you're here, you'll stay that way." Lena's breath hitched. "At what cost?" He didn't answer, and in that silence, something shifted between them. Something neither of them was ready to name. The night after their confrontation, Lena couldn't sleep. She paced her room, her thoughts tangled and restless. The anger that had fueled her for weeks was still there, burning beneath her ribs, but something else had crept in alongside it. Something quieter, more dangerous. Curiosity. She had seen something in Dante's eyes when she'd challenged him. Not just control. Not just duty. Something raw. Something human. And she hated that she'd noticed. She hated that she cared. At 2 a.m, she gave up on sleep. She wrapped a blanket around her shoulders and slipped out of her room, padding barefoot down the hallway. The house was silent. Dark. The kind of darkness that felt heavy, like it had weight. She wandered without direction, letting her feet carry her through corridors she'd never explored. Past closed doors. Past windows that showed nothing but black. Until she found herself at the top of a staircase she didn't recognize. She descended. The stairs led to a lower level, not quite a basement, but something close. The air was cooler here. The walls were stone. And at the end of the hallway, light spilled from beneath a door. Lena hesitated. She should turn back. She should return to her room and pretend she'd never come down here. But her feet moved forward anyway, drawn by that sliver of light, by the promise of answers. She reached the door, pressed her ear against it. Voices. Low. Tense. Dante's voice. I don't care what he wants. She's not going anywhere. Another voice. Older. Rougher. You're letting her cloud your judgment. My judgment is the only thing keeping her alive. Is it? Oh, is it something else? Silence. Then Dante. Quieter now. Get out. Footsteps approached the door. Lena stumbled back, her heart hammering. She turned to run, but the door opened before she could move. Marco stepped out. He saw her and stopped. His expression was unreadable. Miss Moetti. She said nothing. He studied her for a moment, then stepped aside. He'll want to know you're here. Before she could protest, he called back into the room. You have a visitor. Lena's stomach dropped. Dante appeared in the doorway. He looked exhausted. His shirt was untucked, his sleeves rolled up, and when he saw her, something in his expression shifted. Surprise, then concern, then something she couldn't name. Lena. He stepped into the hallway, closing the door behind him. What are you doing down here? I couldn't sleep. Her voice was small. I didn't mean to. It's fine. He ran a hand through his hair. How much did you hear? She could have lied. She should have lied. But she was so tired of lies. Enough. He nodded slowly. Come with me. He led her down the hallway, away from the room, to a small sitting area with a couch and a single lamp. He gestured for her to sit. She did. He sat across from her, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Lena said, Who was that? The man you were talking to. My father's advisor. What did he want? Dante's jaw tightened. He wants me to hand you over. The words hit her like ice water. To who? To the people your father wronged. As a gesture of goodwill. Lena's hands went numb. And you said no. Of course I said no. Why? He looked at her, and in his eyes, she saw the truth before he spoke it. Because I gave you my word, and because I don't trade lives for peace. She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. But trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. What happens if he asks again? He will. Dante's voice was flat. And I'll say no again. And if he doesn't accept that, then he doesn't. Lena stayed at him. You'd defy your own father. For me. He met her gaze without flinching. Yes. The weight of that single word pressed down on her chest. She didn't understand it. Didn't understand him. Didn't understand why a man like Dante Caruso, a man who commanded fear and obedience, would risk everything for someone like her. I don't believe you, she whispered. I know. He stood. But it's true anyway. He walked her back to her room. Neither of them spoke. But when they reached her door, he paused. Lena. She turned. Don't wander at night. The house isn't always safe. She wanted to ask what he meant. But the look in his eyes told her she didn't want to know. So she just nodded and closed the door between them. Something changed after that night. Dante stopped keeping his distance. He still didn't touch her, still didn't push, but he was present. He joined her for meals, walked with her in the garden, sat beside her in the library while she read, and he waked. At first, Lena resented it. She didn't want his company, didn't want the way his presence made the house feel smaller, more intimate. But slowly, against her will, she began to notice things. The way he listened when she spoke, like her words mattered. The way he asked questions, not to interrogate, but to understand. The way he carried exhaustion like a weight he couldn't put down. And the way, sometimes, when he thought she wasn't looking, he watched her with something that looked like longing. One afternoon, they were in the garden. Lena was sitting on a stone bench, watching the sun filter through the trees. Dante stood a few feet away, his hands in his pockets, his gaze distant. "Tell me about your father," she said suddenly. He didn't look at her. "Why?" "Because I want to understand." He was silent for a long moment. Then he sat beside her. "My father is a man who believes in legacy, in power, in control." His voice was measured. "He built an empire on fear, and he expects me to maintain it. Do you want to?" He glanced at her. "Does it matter what I want?" "It should." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You sound like my mother." "What happened to her?" The smile faded. "She left when I was 15. She couldn't live in his world anymore." Lena's chest tightened. "And you stayed?" "I didn't have a choice." He looked down at his hands. "I was the heir, the son, the one who was supposed to carry the name forward. So I stayed, and I learned, and I became what he needed me to be." "What if you could leave?" He looked at her, something unreadable in his eyes. "Then I'd take you with me." The words hung in the air between them, soft and impossible. Lena's breath caught. "Why?" "Because you don't belong in this world." His voice was quiet. "And neither do I." She didn't know what to say, so she said nothing, and they sat together in the fading light, two people trapped in a life neither of them had chosen. If you've ever felt torn between fear and love, you'll understand her. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and check the description box below. Your support keeps stories like this alive. That night, Lena dreamed of fire. Not real fire, metaphorical. The kind that burns through everything you thought you knew and leaves you standing in the ashes, wondering who you were before. She woke gasping, and when she looked out her window, she saw Dante standing in the garden below, his face turned up to the sky. She wondered if he was dreaming too, or if he'd forgotten how. 3 weeks became 4. 4 became 5, and somewhere in the slow, inevitable passage of time, Lena stopped counting. She stopped marking the days, stopped planning her escape, stopped thinking of this place as a prison. It should have terrified her. It should have been a warning. But instead, it felt like surrender. And maybe, she thought, surrender wasn't the worst thing. She found herself seeking Dante out. Not because she had to, not because he asked, but because his presence had become familiar. Safe, the one constant in a world that had been violently upended. He told her stories, not about his work, he never spoke of that, but about the world outside, about the books he'd read, the places he'd been, the dreams he'd had before he learned to stop dreaming. And slowly, carefully, Lena told him her own stories, about her mother, who'd died when she was young, about her father, who'd left and never looked back, about the years she'd spent surviving, one paycheck at a time, one day at a time. Dante listened. He didn't offer platitudes, didn't try to fix her pain. He just listened, and that, more than anything, undid her. One evening, they were in the library. Rain hammered against the windows. Lena was curled up on the couch, a book forgotten in her lap. Dante sat across from her, a glass of whiskey in his hand, his gaze on the fire. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. He looked at her. "Regret what?" "Staying. Becoming this." He took a slow sip of his drink. "Every day." The honesty of it startled her. "Then why don't you leave?" "Because leaving doesn't erase what I've done, who I've become." He set the glass down. "And because there are people who depend on me, people I can't abandon." "Like who?" "Like you." Lena's breath hitched. "I'm not asking you to protect me." "I know." He stood, crossing to the window. "But I am anyway." She watched him, the line of his shoulders, the tension in his posture, the weight he carried that never seemed to lessen. "You don't have to," she said softly. He turned. "Yes, I do." "Why?" He didn't answer. He just looked at her with an intensity that made her heart race. And then, quietly, he said, "Because you're the first good thing I've had in a very long time." Lena stood. She crossed the room until she was standing in front of him, close enough to see the shadows beneath his eyes, the faint scar on his jaw, the exhaustion etched into every line of his face. "I'm not a good thing, Dante. I'm just a person who had a bad father and bad luck." "You're more than that." "So are you." Something flickered in his eyes. For a moment, she thought he might reach for her, thought he might close the distance between them and make this moment something more. But he didn't. He just stepped back. "You should get some rest." And before she could respond, he left. Lena stood alone in the library, her heart pounding, her thoughts spinning. And for the first time, she wondered if the danger she was in wasn't from the people outside, but from the man who'd brought her here. The fracture came 3 days later. Lena was in the garden when she heard the shouting. It came from inside the house, muffled, but unmistakable. Raised voices. Anger. She stood from the bench and moved toward the house, her pulse quickening. The voices grew louder as she approached. She recognized Dante's, and another, older, harsher. She stopped at the doorway to his study. The door was ajar. "You've lost your mind." The older voice. "She's a liability, a distraction, and you're putting the entire family at risk for her." "She's under my protection." "Your protection isn't enough. Not anymore." "Then I'll make it enough." A pause. Then, colder. "You're compromised, Dante. Everyone can see it. You care about her." "That's none of your concern." "It's every bit my concern. Because when you fall, you'll take us all with you." Silence. Then Dante, low and dangerous. "Get out. This isn't over." "Yes, it is." Footsteps. The door swung open, and an older man stepped out, tall, gray-haired, with cold eyes that swept over Lena without recognition. He brushed past her without a word. Lena stood frozen. Then Dante appeared in the doorway. He saw her, and his expression darkened. "How much did you hear?" "Enough." He exhaled slowly, then gestured for her to come inside. She did. He closed the door. "That was my father." Lena's stomach dropped. What did he want? "He wants me to send you away." The words hit her like a blow. "Where?" "It doesn't matter. Somewhere I can't protect you." Her hands clenched. "And what did you say?" "I said no." He met her gaze. "And I'll keep saying no. Even if it costs you everything." "Yes." Lena stayed at him. "You can't do that. You can't sacrifice your life for mine." "Why not?" His voice was sharp. "You didn't ask for this. You didn't deserve this. And I'll be damned if I let you pay for my family's sins." "This isn't about what I deserve," Lena said, her voice rising. "This is about what's real. And the reality is that I'm not worth what you're risking." He crossed the room in 2 strides, stopping inches from her. "Don't say that." "It's true." "It's not." His hands gripped her shoulders, firm but gentle. You're worth more than you know. More than this life. More than me. Lena's breath came in shallow gasps. She looked up at him, and for the first time, she saw it clearly. He didn't just want to protect her. He cared about her. And she, God help her, she cared about him too. Dante, she whispered. He released her, stepping back as if she'd burned him. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. Don't. She reached for him, her hand closing around his wrist. Don't apologize. He looked down at her hand, then at her face, and in that moment, the walls between them crumbled. He pulled her close, and she went willingly, his arms wrapped around her, solid and warm. And Lena pressed her face against his chest and let herself feel it, the fear, the longing, the impossible weight of caring for someone she shouldn't. I won't let anyone hurt you, he said quietly. I promise. Lena closed her eyes. What if the person hurting me is you? He didn't answer, because they both knew the truth. In a world built on violence and control, love was the most dangerous thing of all. The days after the confrontation were different. Not louder, not more chaotic, just heavier. Dante was quieter, more distant, as if that moment in his study had cracked something open in him that he couldn't close again. He still checked on her, still joined her for meals, but there was a carefulness to the way he moved around her now, like she was something fragile, something he couldn't afford to break. And Lena felt it too. The shift, the awareness, the way her heart jumped when he entered a room, the way she found herself watching him when he wasn't looking, the way his voice, low and steady, had become a comfort she didn't want to admit she needed. It was dangerous. She knew that, but knowing didn't make it stop. Rosa noticed first. She didn't say anything outright, but there were small moments, the way she smiled when she found them together in the library, the way she lingered a little longer when bringing Lena her tea, the way she hummed softly to herself as if she knew a secret the world hadn't caught up to yet. One afternoon, as Lena helped her fold linens, Rosa spoke. He's different with you. Lena looked up. What? Mr. Caruso. Rosa's hands moved deftly over the fabric. I've worked for this family for 20 years. I've seen him grow from a boy into what he is now, and I've never seen him like this. Like what? Rosa met her gaze. Hopeful. The word lodged in Lena's chest like a stone. That's not because of me, she said quietly. Isn't it? Rosa smiled softly. You don't see the way he looks at you, but I do. And so does everyone else in this house. Lena's throat tightened. That doesn't mean anything. Doesn't it? She didn't answer. She couldn't. Because the truth was, she didn't know what it meant. She didn't know if what she felt was real or if it was just proximity. Survival. The way people cling to each other in the dark. But when Dante walked into the room later that evening, his eyes finding hers immediately, something in her chest tightened, and she wondered if it mattered whether it was real, because it felt real, and that was enough to terrify her. That night, Lena found Dante on the terrace. He stood at the edge, his hands gripping the railing, his gaze fixed on the horizon. The night was cool, clear. The stars scattered across the sky like broken glass. She approached quietly. Couldn't sleep. He glanced at her, then back at the sky. Never can. She stood beside him, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from him. What do you think about when you can't sleep? He was silent for a long moment. Then, softly, everything I can't fix. Lena looked at him. Like what? Like the fact that I brought you into this world. Like the fact that no matter what I do, you'll never be safe. Not really. He exhaled slowly. Like the fact that I'm the reason you're trapped here. You're also the reason I'm alive, she said. He turned to her. That's not enough. It's more than most people would do. It's not enough for you. The words hung between them, raw and honest. Lena's heart pounded. What do you want from me, Dante? He looked at her, and in his eyes she saw everything he couldn't say. The longing, the guilt, the impossible desire for something neither of them could have. I want you to be free, he said finally, even if it means you leave. Her breath caught. And if I don't want to leave? His jaw tightened. You should. But what if I don't? He turned away. Don't do this, Lena. Do what? Make this harder than it already is. She stepped closer. You think this is easy for me? You think I wanted to care about you? He flinched. I didn't, she continued, her voice shaking. I didn't want any of this. But I'm here, and you're here, and I can't just pretend that doesn't mean something. It can't mean anything. His voice was low, almost desperate, because the moment it does, you become a target, not just for my father, for everyone who wants to hurt me. Then let them, she said fiercely. Let them come. I'm not afraid. You should be. Why? Because you are. He turned to her, his eyes blazing. Yes, because I've seen what this world does to the people I care about, and I won't let it happen to you. You don't get to decide that. Yes, I do. He closed the distance between them, his voice raw. Because I'm the one who brought you here. I'm the one who promised to keep you safe. And I won't break that promise, even if it means keeping you away from me. Lena stared at him. That's not protection, Dante. That's cowardice. The word hit him like a slap. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then he stepped back. Maybe you're right. And he walked away. Lena stood alone on the terrace, her chest heaving, her hands shaking. And she realized, with a clarity that cut through everything, that she had fallen for a man who didn't believe he deserved to be loved. If your heart's racing too, take a breath. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and check the description box below for more unforgettable love stories. The reckoning came 2 days later. Lena woke to the sound of shouting. Not distant this time. Close. Urgent. She threw on a robe and ran into the hallway. Men were moving through the house. Dante's men, armed, their faces grim. Rosa appeared, grabbing Lena's arm. You need to go back to your room. What's happening? Just go. But before Lena could move, Dante appeared at the end of the hall. His shirt was unbuttoned. Blood stained his knuckles. And his eyes were dark with fury. Get her out of here, he said to Rosa. No. Lena pulled away from Rosa. What's going on? Lena. Dante's voice was a command. Not now. Tell me. He crossed to her in 3 strides. He gripped her shoulders, his touch firm. Someone tried to breach the estate. They're gone now. But it's not safe. Her stomach twisted. Who? It doesn't matter. It does. He exhaled, his jaw tight. People who want you dead. The words settled over her like ice. Because of my father, she whispered. Because of me. His voice cracked. Because I kept you here. Because I made you visible. Lena's eyes burned. This isn't your fault. Yes, it is. He released her, stepping back. And I'm ending it. Her heart stopped. What does that mean? He didn't answer. He just looked at her with an expression that felt like goodbye. And Lena knew. He was going to send her away. No, she said, her voice breaking. Don't do this. I have to. No, you don't. You're afraid. You're running. I'm protecting you. You're abandoning me. Tears streamed down her face, just like everyone else. He flinched. Lena. Don't. She stepped back. If you send me away, don't pretend it's for me. Do it because you're too afraid to let yourself feel something. The words hit their mark. Dante stood frozen, his chest heaving, his hands clenched into fists. And then, without warning, He pulled her into his arms. His lips found hers. The kiss was desperate, raw, the kind of kiss that felt like breaking and mending at the same time. Lena melted into him, her hands fisting in his shirt, her heart pounding against his. When he pulled away, his forehead rested against hers. "I can't lose you," he whispered. "Then don't let me go." And for the first time, Dante Caruso stopped running. The world didn't stop because they had found each other. If anything, it moved faster. Dante pulled away from her slowly, his hands still trembling where they held her face. His eyes searched hers, looking for doubt, for fear, for any sign that she would change her mind. But Lena didn't waver. "I'm not leaving," she said firmly. "You don't understand what you're choosing." "I understand perfectly." She placed her hand over his. "I'm choosing you. All of it. The danger, the fear, the impossible odds. I'm choosing you." His throat worked. For a moment, she thought he might argue, that he might push her away again, lock himself behind those walls he'd spent a lifetime building. But he didn't. He kissed her again, softer this time, like a promise. And when he pulled back, something in his expression had shifted. The resignation was gone. In its place was something harder, more dangerous. Determination. "If you stay," he said quietly, "everything changes. I won't hide you anymore. I won't pretend you're just someone I'm protecting. And that means every enemy I have becomes your enemy too." "I know. They'll come for you. Let them." His jaw tightened. "Lena." "I'm not afraid of them, Dante. I'm afraid of losing this." She gestured between them. "Whatever this is, I'm afraid of walking away and spending the rest of my life wondering what it could have been." He stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned to Rosa, who had been standing in the hallway, pretending not to watch. "Get Marco. Tell him I need a full security briefing in 10 minutes. Rosa nodded and disappeared. Dante turned back to Lena. "If we're doing this, we do it my way. You don't leave the grounds without me. You don't go anywhere alone. And if I tell you to run, you run. No questions. Dante. Those are the rules." His voice was steel. "Or I put you on a plane tonight." Lena wanted to argue, but she saw the fear beneath his resolve, the desperate need to protect her, even as he let her stay. So she nodded. "Okay." Relief flickered across his face. He pulled her close one more time, his arms tight around her. "I won't let them hurt you," he murmured against her hair. "I promise." Lena closed her eyes and let herself believe him, even though she knew promises in his world were written in sand. The briefing happened in Dante's study. Marco was already there when they arrived, along with 3 other men Lena didn't recognize. They all stood when Dante entered, their expressions carefully neutral when they saw Lena beside him. Dante didn't acknowledge it. He just gestured for everyone to sit. "Report," he said. Marco cleared his throat. 3 men breached the north perimeter at 0200. They were armed. Professional. They made it as far as the main house before we engaged. How did they get past the sensors? They didn't trip them, which means they had inside knowledge of our security systems. The room went cold. Dante's expression darkened. "Who?" "We don't know yet, but we're working on it." "Work faster." Dante's voice was lethal. "I want to know who sent them, who they talked to, and who the hell gave them our blueprints. And I want to know by morning." "Yes, sir." "What about the men you captured?" "Dead. All 3. They had cyanide capsules." Lena's stomach turned. Dante's jaw clenched. "Professional contractors." "That's our assessment." "Which means whoever sent them has resources. And patience." He leaned back in his chair. "Double the security. I want guards on every entrance. Cameras on every blind spot. And I want Miss Moetti under watch at all times." Marco's gaze flicked to Lena, then back to Dante. "Understood." One more thing. Dante's voice dropped. My father doesn't hear about this. Not yet. Marco hesitated. Sir, he'll find out eventually. Then let him find out eventually. Not tonight. There was a pause. Then Marco nodded. As you wish. The meeting ended. The men filed out, but Marco lingered. Can I speak freely? He asked. Dante gestured for him to continue. Marco glanced at Lena, then back at Dante. This is only going to get worse. You know that. I know. And you're still keeping her here. Yes. Marco sighed. You're compromised, Dante. Everyone can see it, and your enemies will use that. Then let them try. Dante's voice was cold. I'm done playing their games. Marco studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. All right, but if this goes south, it's your head they'll come for first. I'm counting on it. Marco left. Lena looked at Dante. What did he mean? About your head. Dante didn't meet her eyes. It means that by choosing to protect you, I've made myself vulnerable. And in my world, vulnerability is weakness. And weakness gets you killed. The word settled over her like lead. Then why are you doing this? She whispered. He finally looked at her, and the rawness in his gaze nearly broke her. Because for the first time in my life, I have something worth dying for. The days that followed were tense. Security tightened. Men patrolled the grounds day and night. Lena couldn't take a step without someone watching. It should have felt suffocating. But with Dante beside her, it felt manageable. He didn't leave her side. He worked from the library so she could read nearby. He walked with her in the garden, his hand always on the small of her back. He ate with her, talked with her, existed with her in a way that felt both protective and intimate. And at night, he stayed in her room, not in her bed, but in the chair by the window, a gun on the table beside him, his eyes on the door. You don't have to do this, she told him the first night. Yes, I do. You need sleep. I'll sleep when you're safe. Lena wanted to argue, but she knew it was pointless. Dante Caruso didn't know how to be anything other than vigilant. So she let him stay. And slowly, night by night, she began to understand what it cost him. The exhaustion that lined his face, the tension that never left his shoulders, the way he startled at every sound. He was burning himself out for her, and she didn't know how to stop him. One night, she woke to find him standing at the window, his back to her, his posture rigid. She sat up. Dante. He didn't turn. Go back to sleep. What's wrong? Nothing. She slipped out of bed and crossed to him. When she touched his arm, he flinched. Talk to me, she said softly. He was silent for a long moment. Then, quietly, I got word tonight. About who hired the contractors. Her heart sank. Who? My father. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Lena's breath caught. He tried to have me killed. No. Dante's voice was hollow. He tried to have me killed. You were just collateral. The world tilted. Why? Because I defied him. Because I chose you over the family. Because in his eyes, that makes me a traitor. He finally turned to her. And traitors don't get second chances. Lena's chest tightened. So what do we do? Dante's expression was unreadable. We survive. How? He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out. She caught his hand, holding it against her cheek. We'll figure it out. Together. He looked at her like she was something precious, something he couldn't believe was real. I don't deserve you, he whispered. Yes, you do. He pulled her close, and she wrapped her arms around him. And in that quiet moment, surrounded by danger and uncertainty, they held each other like it was the only thing keeping them tethered to the world. Before we close this chapter, take a moment like, comment, subscribe, and check the description box below. Every small gesture helps the next story find its way to you. The storm broke 3 days later. Lena was in the garden when she heard the sound of cars approaching. Multiple cars. Too many. She looked toward the gate and saw them. Black SUVs rolling up the drive like a funeral procession. Her blood ran cold. She ran toward the house, but Marco appeared, blocking her path. Inside. Now. What's happening? Dante's father is here. The words hit her like a blow. Marco grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the house. Dante met them at the door, his expression grim. Take her to my room, he told Marco. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone but me. Dante, Lena started. Not now. His eyes found hers. Please, just trust me. She wanted to argue, but the fear in his gaze stopped her. So she nodded. Marco led her upstairs. She heard the front door open below, heard voices, cold, authoritative, and she knew that whatever was about to happen would change everything. Lena paced Dante's room like a caged animal. She couldn't hear what was being said downstairs. The walls were too thick, but she could feel it, the weight pressing down on the house, heavy and suffocating, like the air before a storm breaks. Marco stood by the door, silent and immovable. She had tried talking to him, tried asking what was happening, but he just shook his head. Mr. Caruso gave his orders. I don't care about his orders. I need to know what's going on. You'll know when it's over. Lena wanted to scream. She wanted to throw something, but she forced herself to breathe, to think. Dante's father had come for him. That much was clear. And whatever conversation was happening downstairs, it wasn't going to end well. Time stretched. Minutes felt like hours. And then she heard it. A single gunshot. The sound cracked through the house like lightning. Lena's heart stopped. She ran for the door, but Marco blocked her. Move, she said, her voice shaking. No. He could be hurt. He could be. He gave me orders. I don't care. She shoved against him. Let me out. Marco didn't budge, but something in his expression shifted. Uncertainty, fear, another shot, then shouting. Marco's radio crackled. A voice, urgent. All units to the study, now. Marco hesitated. Then he grabbed Lena's arm. Stay behind me. Do not run. Do not make a sound. He opened the door and pulled her into the hallway. They moved quickly, quietly, down the stairs, through corridors that suddenly felt too long. And with every step, Lena's heart pounded harder. They reached the study. The door was open. And inside, Dante stood in the center of the room, blood on his shirt, a gun in his hand. His father lay on the floor, clutching his shoulder, surrounded by his men. No one moved. No one spoke. The silence was deafening. Dante's father looked up at him, his expression twisted with fury and pain. You'll regret this. Dante's voice was cold. I already do. You think you can defy me? You think you can walk away from this family? I'm not walking away. Dante lowered the gun. I'm taking it from you. His father laughed, a bitter, broken sound. You don't have the strength. Watch me. Dante turned to his men. Get him out of here. Take him to the city. Make sure he gets medical attention. And make sure he understands he's no longer welcome on this property. The men hesitated, looking between Dante and his father. That's an order, Dante said quietly. Slowly, they moved. They helped his father to his feet. He shrugged them off, glaring at Dante. This isn't over. Yes, Dante said. It is. His father's gaze shifted to Lena, standing in the doorway. His eyes narrowed. She's the reason. She's the weakness. She's the reason I'm still alive, Dante said. Now get out. His father spat on the floor. Then he turned and walked out, his men following. The room exhaled. Dante stood there, motionless, the gun still in his hand. Blood dripped from his knuckles. His breathing was ragged. Lena crossed the room. She didn't care about the blood. Didn't care about the danger. She just went to him. Dante. He looked at her, and she saw it. The fracture. The breaking point. I shot my father, he said, his voice hollow. You defended yourself. I shot my father. She took the gun from his hand and set it on the desk. Then she cupped his face, forcing him to look at her. You did what you had to do. Did I? His voice cracked. Or did I just become everything I swore I wouldn't? You're not him, she said fiercely. You're nothing like him. How do you know? Because he would have killed you, and you let him live. The words seemed to cut through the fog. Dante closed his eyes, his hands coming up to cover hers. I can't go back from this, he whispered. There's no going back. Then we go forward. She pressed her forehead to his. Together. He pulled her close, and she felt him shaking. Not from fear, from release, from the weight of a decision that couldn't be undone. And in that moment, Lena understood. He hadn't just defied his father. He had chosen a different life. The aftermath was chaos. Word spread quickly. Dante Caruso had turned on his father, had taken control, had made it clear that the old ways were over. Some of his father's men left. Others stayed, pledging loyalty to Dante. And still others waited, watching, calculating their next move. The house became a fortress, not just physically, but politically. Every decision Dante made was scrutinized, every word analyzed. He was walking a tightrope, and one wrong step would send everything crashing down. But he didn't walk it alone. Lena was with him, in every meeting, every conversation, every decision, not as a decoration, not as a weakness, as his equal. The men noticed. Some respected it, others resented it, but none of them challenged it, because Dante had made it clear she was untouchable. One evening, as they sat in his study, Dante looked at her across the desk. You should leave. Lena looked up from the book she'd been reading. Excuse me. You should leave. Go somewhere safe. Start over. She closed the book. We've had this conversation. That was before I became this. He gestured vaguely. I'm not just protecting you anymore, Lena. I'm dragging you into a war. Then I'll fight. You don't know what you're saying. Yes, I do. She stood, crossing to him. I know exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying I'm staying. I'm saying I'm not afraid. And I'm saying that if you try to send me away again, I'll come back. He stared at her. Why? Because I love you. The words hung in the air, raw and undeniable. Dante's breath caught. Lena. I love you, she said again, stronger this time. And I know you love me too. So stop trying to push me away and let me stay. For a long moment, he didn't speak. Then he stood, closing the distance between them. I do love you, he said quietly, more than I thought I could love anyone. And that terrifies me. Good. She smiled. It should. He kissed her, slow, deep, like he was memorizing the feel of her. And when he pulled back, his eyes were clear. All right, he said. You stay. Thank you. But you follow my rules. Some of them. He laughed, a real laugh, the first she'd heard in days. And for a moment, the war outside didn't matter. Because in that room, they had each other. And that was enough. The weeks that followed were the strangest of Lena's life. On the surface, things were calm. The house settled into a new rhythm. Dante's authority solidified. His father's loyalists either fell in line or disappeared. And slowly, carefully, Dante began reshaping the empire he'd inherited into something that looked less like tyranny and more like order. But beneath the surface, the tension never left. There were late-night meetings behind closed doors. encrypted phone calls, men coming and going at odd hours, and always, always, the sense that something was building, that the calm was temporary, that the storm hadn't passed, it had only paused. Lena learned to read the signs. The way Dante's jaw tightened when he read certain messages, the way Marco's expression would shift from neutral to grim, the way the guards changed positions, tightened rotations. She learned the language of danger, and she learned how to live with it. One afternoon, she found Dante in the library. He was at the window, staring out at the grounds, his hands clasped behind his back. She approached quietly. "What are you thinking about?" He didn't turn. "Everything I'm about to lose." Her chest tightened. "What do you mean?" "My father's not done. He's gathering support, building alliances. He's going to come for me. And when he does, it won't just be him. It'll be everyone who thinks I'm weak. Everyone who wants what I have." "You're not weak. I chose you over power. In their eyes, that's the definition of weak." Lena moved to stand beside him. "Then they don't understand what power is." He glanced at her. "And you do." "Power isn't control," she said. "It's not fear. It's the ability to choose, to decide what matters and fight for it. You did that. That makes you stronger than any of them." He was quiet for a long moment. Then, softly, "How do you do that?" "Do what?" "Make me believe things might actually be okay." She took his hand. "Because they will be. We'll make sure of it." He pulled her close, resting his chin on top of her head. And they stood there, two people in the eye of a storm, holding onto each other like they were the only solid thing left. That night, Lena couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. Dante was in the study, waking late again. She tried to get him to rest, but he'd just kissed her forehead and told her he'd come to bed soon. She knew he wouldn't. She was about to get up and drag him to bed herself when she heard it. A sound. Faint. Wrong. She sat up, listening. Footsteps. In the hallway. Too many. Too fast. Her heart lurched. She threw off the covers and ran to the door. Opened it. The hallway was chaos. Men in black masks. Guns raised. Moving toward Dante's study. Lena's blood ran cold. She didn't think. She just ran. "Dante." The men turned. One raised his weapon. And then Marco appeared from nowhere, tackling the man to the ground. "Get her out of here." Another of Dante's men grabbed Lena, pulling her back. But she fought. "Let me go. He's in there." "Miss Moetti, you need to." Gunfire erupted. The sound was deafening. Lena screamed. The man holding her shoved her into a room and slammed the door. "Stay here. Lock the door. Don't come out." "No, I need to." But he was already gone. Lena stood in the dark room, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. She could hear the gunfire, the shouting, the chaos, and she couldn't do anything. She pressed her hands against the door, tears streaming down her face. Asterisk, please be alive. Please be alive. Please be alive. Asterisk. The gunfire stopped. The silence that followed was worse. Lena waited. Every second felt like an eternity. And then the door opened. She stumbled back, her breath catching. But it wasn't an enemy. It was Dante. Blood on his face. His shirt torn. But alive. "Lena." She threw herself into his arms. He caught her, holding her so tight she couldn't breathe. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice rough. "No. Are you?" "I'm fine." He pulled back, checking her over. "Did they touch you?" "No." Marco stopped them. She gripped his shirt. "What happened?" "They came for me." His jaw was tight. "My father sent them." "How many?" "Enough." He glanced back at the hallway. "But we stopped them." "All of them." "Most of them." His expression darkened. "The rest ran." Lena's legs felt weak. She leaned against him, trying to process everything. "This has to end," she whispered. "It will." Dante's voice was cold. "Tonight." She looked up at him. "What are you going to do?" He didn't answer. He just kissed her forehead and pulled away. "Stay here. Marco will watch you." "Dante. I need to finish this, Lena. And I need to know you're safe while I do." Before she could argue, he was gone. And Lena was left in the dark, her heart in pieces, praying he would come back. The hours that followed were the longest of Lena's life. Marco stayed with her, silent and watchful. She asked him questions, where Dante had gone, what he was doing, when he'd be back. But Marco gave her nothing. Just the same stoic expression, the same careful silence. So she waited. She sat on the edge of the bed, her hands clasped in her lap, her mind spinning through every terrible possibility. Asterisk, what if he doesn't come back? Asterisk. Asterisk, what if his father wins? Asterisk. Asterisk, what if I never see him again? Asterisk. The thoughts circled like vultures, and no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't make them stop. Dawn was breaking when she finally heard footsteps in the hall. She stood, her heart in her throat. The door opened, and Dante walked in. He looked exhausted. His clothes were still stained with blood, some his, some not. His eyes were hollow, but he was alive. Lena ran to him. She didn't care about the blood, didn't care about anything except the fact that he was there. "It's over," he said quietly. She pulled back to look at him. "What do you mean?" "My father, his men, the threat." He exhaled slowly. "It's over." Relief flooded through her, so strong it nearly brought her to her knees. "What happened?" "I gave him a choice." Dante's voice was flat. "Leave the country and never come back, or face the consequences." And he chose to leave. Lena stayed at him. Just like that. Just like that. He moved to the window, staring out at the rising sun. He knew if he stayed, I'd have no choice but to kill him. And he knew I would. So he left. "Do you think he'll come back?" "No." Dante's voice was certain. He's smart enough to know when he's lost. And he's proud enough to disappear rather than admit defeat. Lena crossed to him, wrapping her arms around him from behind. "So what happens now?" He turned, pulling her close. "Now we rebuild. We make this world into something better, something that doesn't run on fear." "Can you do that?" "I don't know." He looked down at her. "But I'm going to try." She smiled. "Then I'll help you." He kissed her, soft, gentle, like they had all the time in the world. And maybe, for the first time, they did. The days after were different. Lighter. The house no longer felt like a fortress. The men no longer moved with such rigid vigilance. And Dante started to breathe again. He still worked long hours, still made difficult decisions, but there was a lightness to him now, a hope that hadn't been there before. And Lena was part of it all. She helped him navigate the new structure he was building, offered perspectives he hadn't considered, challenged him when he slipped into old patterns. And slowly, the empire that had been built on fear began to transform into something else, something that looked like justice. One evening, as they walked through the garden, Dante stopped. "I have something to tell you." Lena looked at him. "What?" "I've been working on something. A way to legitimize the business, move away from the illegal operations, turn this into something real." Her eyes widened. "You're serious?" "I am." He took her hands. "It won't be easy. It'll take years, and there will be people who resist. But I think it's possible, and I want to do it." "Why?" "Because I want a life with you. A real life. Not one where we're constantly looking over our shoulders. Not one where our children—" He stopped. "If we have children, I want them to grow up knowing their father isn't a monster." Tears filled Lena's eyes. You're not a monster. I've done monstrous things. And you're trying to make them right. That matters. He pulled her close. I don't deserve you. Yes, you do. She kissed him. And I'm not going anywhere. Promise. Promise. They stood there in the fading light, two people who had found each other in the darkness and decided to walk toward the light together. Weeks turned into months. The transformation was slow but steady. Dante restructured the organization, cut ties with the most violent operations, focused on legitimate businesses, real estate, investments, security. It wasn't perfect. There were still gray areas, still compromises, but it was progress. And Lena was with him every step of the way. She became more than just his partner. She became his conscience, his anchor, the person who reminded him why he was doing this when the old ways called to him. People began to respect her, not just because she was with Dante, but because she earned it. She was smart, capable, and she didn't back down. One day, as they sat in the study reviewing contracts, Dante set down his pen and looked at her. Marry me. Lena looked up, startled. What? Marry me. He came around the desk, kneeling in front of her. I know this world isn't what you wanted. I know it's complicated and messy and probably always will be. But I love you, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Tears streamed down her face. You're serious. I've never been more serious about anything. She laughed through her tears. Yes, yes, of course yes. He kissed her, and the world felt right. They married quietly. No grand ceremony. No spectacle. Just them, Rosa, Marco, and a handful of people they trusted. It was small, intimate, perfect. And as Lena stood beside Dante, his hand in hers, she realized something. She had spent her entire life trying to survive. But now, finally, she was living. Time, it turned out, had a way of softening even the sharpest edges. 2 years passed. The house on the hill was different now. Not in structure. It still stood tall and elegant, its stone walls weathered by wind and rain. But in feeling, it no longer felt like a fortress. It felt like a home. Lena walked through the garden in the early morning light, a mug of coffee warming her hands. The air was cool. The sky was clear. And for the first time in years, she felt at peace. The business had changed. Dante had done what he'd promised. Slowly, methodically dismantled the illegal operations and rebuilt something legitimate. It hadn't been easy. There had been resistance, threats, moments when it seemed like everything would collapse. But they had survived. Together, behind her, she heard footsteps. She turned to see Dante approaching, his shirt unbuttoned, his hair still messy from sleep. "You're up early," he said. "Couldn't sleep." He wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" "Everything. Nothing." She leaned into him. "How different things are now." "Better. So much better." They stood there in comfortable silence, watching the sun rise over the grounds. "Do you ever regret it?" Dante asked quietly. Lena turned to look at him. "Regret what?" "Staying. Choosing this life. Choosing me." She cupped his face. "Not for a single second." "Even when it was hard?" "Especially when it was hard." She kissed him softly. "Because that's when it mattered most." He smiled, that rare, genuine smile that still made her heart skip. "I love you." "I love you too." They stayed in the garden for a while longer, then went inside for breakfast. Rosa had already prepared everything, humming softly to herself as she moved around the kitchen. "Good morning. You too," she said warmly. "Morning, Rosa," Lena replied, kissing her cheek. They ate together, a quiet, ordinary moment that would have seemed impossible 3 years ago. After breakfast, Dante retreated to his study to work. Lena spent the morning in the library, writing. She had started documenting their story, not for publication, but for herself, so she would never forget how far they'd come. At noon, Marco stopped by. "Mrs. Caruso," he said with a respectful nod. He still refused to call her by her first name, despite her repeated requests. "Marco, what brings you here?" "Just checking in. Mr. Caruso wanted me to remind you about the meeting tonight." Lena nodded. "I remember. 6 o'clock. Good." He hesitated, "And I wanted to say, it's good to see you both happy. You deserve it." She smiled. "Thank you, Marco. That means a lot." He nodded and left. Lena returned to her writing, but her thoughts drifted. She thought about the girl she'd been 3 years ago, exhausted, invisible, just trying to survive. She thought about the moment Dante had walked into that cafe and changed everything. She thought about the fear, the anger, the slow, impossible falling. And she thought about how love, in its strangest form, had become her freedom. That evening, they attended the meeting together. It was a gathering of Dante's new partners, legitimate businessmen and women who were helping him transform the organization. Lena had become an integral part of these meetings. Her insights were valued, her presence respected. She sat beside Dante as he outlined the next phase of their plan. His voice was calm, confident. The man he had become was so different from the one she'd first met. Still strong, still commanding, but with a gentleness that hadn't been there before. After the meeting, as they drove home, Dante reached over and took her hand. "You were brilliant tonight," he said. "I just asked a few questions." "You asked the right questions. That's what matters." She smiled. "We make a good team." "The best." They drove in comfortable silence, the city lights fading behind them as they headed back to the house. When they arrived, Lena went upstairs to change. As she was getting ready for bed, she heard Dante come in. "Lena." "In here." He appeared in the doorway, holding something behind his back. "What is it?" she asked. He brought his hand forward, revealing a small, wrapped package. "What's this?" "Open it." She took the package and carefully unwrapped it. Inside was a leather-bound journal, her initials embossed on the cover. "For your writing," Dante said. "I noticed you'd almost filled your current one." Taze pricked her eyes. "Thank you. There's something inside." She opened the journal. On the first page, in Dante's careful handwriting, was a single sentence. Asterisk, "She saved me before I even knew I needed saving." Asterisk. Lena looked up at him, her vision blurred with tears. "It's true," he said softly. "You did. You saved me too." He crossed the room and pulled her into his arms. And they stood there, holding each other, two people who had found salvation in the most unexpected place. Life continued. Not perfect. Not without challenges. But good. Lena opened a community center in the city, a place for people like she'd been, struggling to survive, to find resources and support. Dante funded it, and she ran it, pouring her heart into helping others. They talked about having children. Not yet, but someday. When the world was a little safer. When they were a little more ready. But they had time. For the first time in either of their lives, they had time. On a quiet evening, 5 years after the day Dante had walked into that cafe, Lena found herself back in the garden. The sun was setting. The sky was painted in shades of gold and pink. And beside her, Dante stood with his arm around her waist. "Do you ever think about that day?" she asked. "In the cafe?" "All the time." "Do you regret it?" "Approaching me." He turned to her. "I regret the danger I put you in. But I don't regret finding you. I could never regret that." She leaned into him. "I used to think my life was over, that I'd never be anything more than someone just surviving. And then you walked in, and everything changed. For both of us." They stood in the fading light, Two souls who had found each other in the darkness and chosen to walk toward the dawn. The world hadn't changed. Danger still existed. Fear still lurked in the corners. But they had each other, and that, they both knew, was everything. If stories like this linger in your heart long after they end, don't leave just yet. Like, comment, subscribe, and check the description box below, and let the next story find you when the night grows quiet again. Years would pass. They would face more challenges, more storms, but they would face them together. And in the end, that was all that mattered. Not the power, not the wealth, not the empire Dante had transformed. Just two people who had found love in the most impossible place, and who had chosen, every single day, to fight for it. That was their story, and it was enough.